I think we should be good. Okay, we're good. Welcome to another edition of Full Court Press with Coach Jay. I have a special guest on today, Coach Murray Garvin of South Carolina State University. Coach, I'm going to start out with a funny question that I like to start out with and just kind of ask, try to break the ice a little bit. Tell me a story about whenever your first time in coaching, you got that first whooping from somebody that you just was like, okay, now this is real. I got to take this seriously.
Wow. There's been so many of them. I would say my first junior college game as a head coach, and actually a good friend of ours, a mutual friend, Coach Hollis, was my assistant coach. Our first game, we're playing against a school called Georgia Perimeter. Mm-hmm. And they were a nationally ranked junior college team. And I think they beat us by maybe 20 or 30. And it was about a 3-hour bus ride. And we got home from Atlanta back to Rock Hill, South Carolina. And we got straight off the bus and went to practice at like midnight that night. And, that was a reality check. And I think that got everybody's attention. Even some of those former players that were with me at Clinton, they still joke and still remember that, and that's when they said, this coach ain't playing around. We ain't going to take butt whippings like that and just move on. This ain't AAU where you got another game the next hour. These wins and losses matter.
Oh, yeah. So with that, let's start there a little bit. Go ahead and tell the people about yourself a little bit. Tell us about your coaching journey, how you got started in the coaching, and we'll go from there.
It's an interesting climb, Jay. It's been something, man. What I look up now, and I've been coaching for a total of 24 years now. And I still consider myself a young man, but 24 years in the coaching game. I finished school at Eastern Kentucky University, and my first coaching job, I actually coached 10-year-olds at the YMCA on Saturday mornings with no practice during the week. You just met up on Saturday, and all you could say to them was, "Good job. You'll make the next shot. Are you having fun?" I don't know. Sometimes I think I need to incorporate that now, but that's all you could do with them. The ball I'd have to duck from a ball hitting me on the sidelines, and I'll say, "That's okay, Johnny. You'll make the next ones." But that was my humble beginning, coaching on that level. And then ever since then, man, I have been blessed to coach every level of basketball. I went from the YMCA to freshman team at the high school to JV head coach. I was never a varsity head coach on the high school level. I was just an assistant coach on the high school level. And then from there, I went on to become the head coach at Clinton Junior College. That was how I broke into the college ranks. I think I was only about 26 years old, maybe, when I became a head coach on the junior college level, and did that for a couple of years. And then I moved on to Charleston Southern University as an assistant. From Charleston Southern to Winston-Salem State, from Winston-Salem State University to South Carolina State. And we actually had one of the nation's longest losing streaks in conference before I became the head coach there at South Carolina State. And I look up, and now it's been 8 years being at South Carolina State. And it's just been an incredible journey. I like to tell young coaches, man, that there's no certain path to becoming a head coach on the college level. I don't believe that you have to belong to a coaching family. I do believe that what is for you, and what you're willing to dream about and what you're willing to work for can happen if everything lines up.
So who was your biggest coaching influence? Obviously, you started the YMCA. I got a taste of that this year. I got to coach my 7-year-old twins. And that was it was intense, but it was fun because that's all you can say is good job, keep trying. But who are your biggest influences in there? Who do you lean on today as mentors to, when you got to talk about something?
Well, to be honest, one of the first coaches that caught my eye as a youth had to be Coach John Thompson at Georgetown University. I was a young man growing up in Kentucky, and I'll never forget the first time the University of Kentucky actually played Georgetown. And it was my first experience almost seeing an all-Black basketball team on national TV, including the coach. And that was something that always sparked my eye. Nolan Richardson, Tubby Smith. I've been blessed to John Chaney. I've been blessed that over my life, I've have at least met all of those coaches. Personally, wouldn't claim that they're friends or anything like that. But what you realize in the college world, that the coaching fraternity is very small. Keep in mind, there's only 354, I believe, Division I programs. And at every Final Four, it's our national coaching convention. And you're probably going to see every coach during that weekend, wherever the Final Four is held. So I've been able to interact with those guys. Actually, it's funny. I actually got to coach against Tubby Smith. He gave me one of the worst whoopings that I've ever received. And hopefully the worst, I'll never have to relive that again. But we played against him at Texas Tech. Okay. And they were coming off, Jay, and they shot the ball horrible. It's early in the season. Right. And we just didn't think they could really shoot it from three. Well, to make a long story short, that game, they might have made 16 threes that game. And I'm not embarrassed to say it, but they beat us by, it might have been 50 or more. Wow. And this was Texas Tech. Man, we had a come to Jesus meeting the next day. Now let me tell you the end game on this. And I was so excited to be coaching against Coach Smith. And again, he was a role model and a mentor. And he beat us like we stole something. And we get back to the hotel, and in 2 days, we're getting ready to match up against the University of Houston. And man, we had a come to Jesus meeting, and we talked, and I bet we watched film for 4 or 5 hours, one game. And man, the next game against Houston, we go out and we beat Houston. And that was against Kelvin Sampson. Now, this is maybe his first or second year when he got to Houston, but we were able to knock them off. So it was the definite highs and lows of basketball. But those guys are kind of mentors for me, probably the most influential coach for me. It's winning stages. Getting into coaching, the most influential coach was my high school coach by the name of Keno Trivet. He's probably the most influential in getting me into coaching. He actually got me my first coaching job on the high school level back in Kentucky. And as I've matured in this business, I've picked up other mentors along the way. Dale Clayton was, he is one of my mentors. He's a retired coach that currently works with an organization called the Nation of Coaches, where they mentor coaches spiritually. And, he's always been there for me through the years. Tim Carter was a guy that I worked for a year and a half here at South Carolina State. And he and I still maintain a strong friendship. And a lot of the head coaches that I worked under, Barkley Radebaugh at Charleston Southern, he's still there. I worked with Bobby Collins at Winston-Salem State. Turn around and Coach Collins and he was on my staff the past 2 years. And now he just became the head coach again at Shaw University. one of the few coaches that has captured a MEAC championship and a CIAA championship. So I've been blessed, man, to be around some very strong men and influential coaches. And, I believe that coaching changes lives, man. And, it's an honor to have that title and for people to look at me in that manner.
So with that, I actually got to talk with Mike Jarvis last week. So he got to tell me some of his good stories about, the St. John's run and how he had to coach Patrick Ewing in high school. That was pretty good. Right. So one of my biggest questions is, like, going into South Carolina State, y'all were on a losing streak before you got there. What was your ultimate goal in building culture to bring in a winning attitude? And because, when a school's been losing for so long, it's kind of, and the same players are there, and you haven't gotten a chance to get all of your players in. How'd you go about building culture?
Well, again, I was here during that losing streak. I was an assistant coach.
Okay.
When it started and when it ended, but it was early. I had just gotten here, and that happened. I want to say it started in the first year, late in the season, and then it continued into the next season. And then that's when I was elevated to become the head coach. I think we had like 7 games left in the season is when I took over. And just changing the culture, man, I think it's something that's constant, Jay. You got to constantly fight for your culture. It's not something that just arrives and it stays there. You have to monitor it. You have to nurture it. You have to water it. It's like taking care of a garden. If you don't take care of it, man, you'll have weeds that grow up in it. Plants, it can wither and die away. So you got to constantly till the soil, man. And there's no magic pill for it. A lot of people think culture is established by winning. I think that's a part of it, but that's not the end all. You have to set standards in your program. Like, what are you going to tolerate? What are you going to put up with? What is your expectations? Something we talk about a lot is we don't like to coach effort. I got a slogan that one of the coaches I picked up from, I can't remember, once you're in it 24 years, you realize nothing is your own. Right. But I have something that I tell every team, that I'd rather say whoa instead of go. That is something I would rather tell someone, hey, whoa, instead of trying to motivate them to go harder. So, the culture question is something that is constant. I think you establish it by being consistent at whatever you choose. You have to be consistent. It's got to be an everyday standard, and it has to be obtained and sustained. And once you get there, you got to sustain it by being consistent and doing, the things that got you to that point. And I would say at South Carolina State right now, our culture is, our guys believe that we come in and we work hard. I believe they realize that they're more than basketball players. We're graduating about 98% of the young men that come through our program. Of course, every coach that didn't win the championship would like to win a couple of more games. I mean, we're all there. I would trade a couple of more wins and a couple of more, opportunities to play for a championship, of course. But, this game, and I think we're all realizing right now, is so much bigger than basketball, man. You tell young people that you got to prepare for life after basketball. Well, for my seniors, it came a little faster than we all expected this spring. And, so therefore, what we talk about as coaches has really smacked all of us right in the face, with this COVID-19 right now.
Right. So with that, and this may be a kind of a redundant question, but I just wanted to ask it as well. what was when you initially took over, outside of trying to build culture and recruit guys, maybe, what was the first thing that you wanted to do once they named you head coach?
Well, one of the first, I wanted the guys to believe. I wanted them to believe, and anytime that you take over a program mid-season or, toward the end of a season, you want to give them a punch of ownership, like you're turning this back over to them. You want them to have fun playing. I'll never forget one of the first things I did, and it was all aimed at them having fun, man. I put in about 2 or 3 lob sets,
right?
Where they could go out and just feel free to play the game. And, I think my first game as head coach was against North Carolina A&T, actually, and it was the return of Coach Cy Alexander to Orangeburg. And it was his first time coming back, and he's a legendary coach here. He won 5 MEAC championships, probably the all-time winningest coach, and he had just taken over North Carolina A&T, and it was his first game back in Orangeburg after being gone for maybe 10 years. And we were fortunate to win that basketball game. Well, that gave our coaching staff instant credibility with the community. Just because, we were able to beat Coach Alexander and his bunch from A&T. But it was to install belief, really, was the first thing, Jay. And then to make sure that they had a good time playing basketball and still playing hard. And we were able to do that. And I look up, man, and I'm still here 8 years later. So we must be doing some things right.
So I'm going to go into practice planning, and then I'll ask a little bit about your philosophy, and then a couple of other little questions, and then we'll be out the way. With practice planning, let's just say that at the beginning of the season, you go through your midnight madness. There's no practice, there's no game coming up. You come into that first Monday after you're able to start practicing. How long does it take you and your staff, or you in general, to prepare for just a practice that may be 2.5, 3-hour practice?
Well, as the years go by, man, some things become a little bit easier, but I remember each year brings on a different case. It's according to, and it's funny that you asked this. I just did a presentation with the Georgia Minority Coaches Association that was streamed earlier this week. And we talked about game prep and scouting reports, and we got into how to shape a practice as well. It's all according, and I really emphasize the capacity of your team. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, have you ever been to a gas station and got what they call a big gulp?
Yes, sir.
It's the big 64-ounce cup.
At 7-Eleven.
Right, at 7-Eleven, called a big gulp. Well, you have to know if your team is a big gulp or if they're a teacup.
Right.
Okay. What can they retain information-wise?
Right.
And I do believe in this saying, and you can jot this down as a note if you hadn't heard this before, but the more you make people think, the slower their feet move. The more you make an athlete think, the slower their feet move. Now, it's just a given that early on in the season, their feet, it's going to move pretty slow, because there's a lot of kids that come from the high school level that have no idea about the game planning and the strategy that goes into Division I college basketball.
No, I don't.
And, so getting them accustomed to making counter moves and how to guard a screen a certain way, how to guard a flare screen, how to guard a down screen, how to guard a stagger screen, how to guard a guard-to-guard screen, ball screens. Are you going to ice the screen? Are you going to hedge on the screen? Are you going to go under? So the beginning of the season, man, that's a lot of teaching. And
right.
A lot of coaches, you got to teach. I mean, you just have to teach. If you're a coach, there's 2 things that you are. Number one, you're a teacher. And then the next thing is you're a psychologist. You got to be able to work with young people and get them from the level that they're currently at and try to elevate them in all aspects. And in our program at South Carolina State, again, the emphasis is it's bigger than basketball. And, you know, we try to balance that out by living that 24/7.
With that, let's talk about philosophy a little bit. What is your defensive philosophy? I'm a defensive guy. I love defense. And Coach Hollis can attest to this. He'll tell you that I like to put pressure on you when you pull up in the parking lot. But just talk about your defensive philosophy a little bit, and just, you know, for people watching, just in case they might find a tidbit or something they want to add to their repertoire.
Well, you know, I like to be able to do a little bit of everything defensively, just to keep the opponent off balance. You know, we may press some, we may zone press, we may trap the first pass, we may drop back into a 2-3 matchup zone, we may play man-to-man and switch everything. Again, it goes to the capacity of your team and what your team brings to the table. Over the years, when I was a junior college head coach, man, we were full length of the court. I used to say we're picking them up as soon as they get off the bus. We used to get after it for 40 minutes. You know, I was real big on Nolan Richardson and 40 Minutes of Hell that they started at Arkansas. And then as I went and I got different philosophies of the game, I kind of got scared of playing that way. And coaches, for some odd reason, man, a lot of us like to control every possession. And, you know, I'm trying to get back away from that and trying to go back to high tempo basketball. I just think that everyone right now, we're so patterned. And I think if you can get teams out of running their pattern, you can better your opportunities to win games. So I'm, you know, my philosophy is win the game.
I mean, that's the name of the game.
You know, win the game, man, by any means necessary. Win the game, and you have to be able to make adjustments throughout the contest.
Right. I said something earlier about you said something about freshmen don't know how to understand what they're about to get hit with. I know when I got to Western Kentucky, shout out to the Hilltoppers, even though you're an Eastern Kentucky guy. Right. But when I got there under Dennis Felton, that film session and grinding out, learning how to come off a down screen, the double screen, the cross screen, and ball screen, play it this way, play it that. Give me the game. Right. but it is a different, because Coach and I talked about this last Friday on the show. It is a different culture shock. And for me, going from being a primary post player in high school to a wing player in college, it was definitely a tough transition, but I caught on to it a little bit. Let's talk about Nolan Richardson a little bit. This is kind of off my questions, but I got to work out with Corliss Williams some when I lived in Arkansas. He was one of my big mentors on the playing side. But the 40 Minutes of Hell, what did you like about it, and what did you not like about it?
Well, what I loved about it was the excitement of the game. You know, you had to take care of the ball every possession, and they were up in you. And I loved the intensity of it. Really, really admired that. And, you know, you could also be athletic and extend the court and just pressure people and run and throw lobs. And I just thought, you know, when I watched Arkansas with Nolan Richardson, man, if you were a fan, you couldn't sit down during their games. No. You know, and again, being a young man growing up in Kentucky, you know, he was one of the first coaches to come up in Rupp Arena, man, and just kick Kentucky's butt. And that always caught my attention. And then, you know, it kind of went to what Rick Pitino was doing. He had the same philosophy about high pressure defense and intensity and shooting the three. And again, just as I got older, I pulled away from, I don't know if we could play that fast. You know, I don't know. And, And sometimes I regret that I changed my philosophy. But sometimes this thing is trial and error too. And again, maybe next year we may play a little bit faster. I really anticipate going back and picking the tempo of the game up and seeing if we can create some easy baskets by pressure defense the full length of the court. Now, the part that I didn't like as I got older in coaching, Jay, I hated giving up layups. And when you play the full length of the court, you are going to give up some layups.
Right.
That's a part of it. And it would just drive me bananas for a team to get an easy basket. But yet you look up and you're playing half court defense and they're still getting easy baskets. Why not create some excitement and see if they can do that for 40 minutes? So again, it's trial and error. And I've just been blessed with the opportunity to be able to have some errors and the opportunity to correct them. So I'm excited about the future and what it's going to bring for our program.
I definitely like the up-tempo game because it keeps you on the edge of your seat. I know that when UNLV did it a little bit too, when they beat Duke in 1990 by like 30 in the national championship game, it was amazing because I've watched that game several times just because, and I was only like 7 at the time, but I've watched that game several times as in my adult career just to get to understand how playing fast can take teams out of what they're doing.
Right. Now, what you can't be deceived about with these teams that we're talking about, man, they had a whole bunch of pros on the floor.
They did. They had a lot of them.
UNLV, Arkansas, Kentucky, Georgetown, man, they had a whole lot of guys that wore those 3 letters NBA.
Right.
But maybe you can create NBA players by giving them more scoring opportunities and letting them get out and run. So, there's a give and take with everything.
So let's talk individual workouts a little bit. Before I go there, let's talk, as we're still on practice, how do you decide what you're focusing on in practice? Okay, so now maybe it's a game week or you got a couple days in between a game. How are you deciding what you're going to focus on in those couple days?
Well, first of all, I do believe that every practice should always have skill development in it. Okay. You want to constantly try to get your guys better. The better your players are, there's no secret to this. The better your players are, the less you have to coach. Then you get to manage the game, okay? And I believe coaches that get to manage instead of coaching the entire game, you better your chance to win the basketball game. So you want to always incorporate skill development into your practice plan, whether it be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, before practice, after practice, during practice. That's up to the head coach for you to establish when, where, and how. But I do believe that it has to be a part of your practice program, that you have skill development. And some people call those individual workouts, whether it's a lot of times, are you there by yourself to call them individual workouts? You're usually at least 3 or 4 deep, at a workout. Every now and then you might have a coach and a player one-on-one, but for the most part, you're going to be in a group. So I believe skill development is a major part of basketball. I wish that more high school coaches did that. And then, Jay, the trend now is these kids working out by themselves. And I don't have a problem with that, but I've also noticed there's a great deal of kids that can do drills, but they can't play. I believe that you have to play. You have to play. You got to play the game. You can't drill and never play. You can't do skill development and never play. You have to get used to having 4 other guys on the floor with you, both defensively and offensively. So I say that to emphasize that we scrimmage a lot in our practices. We scrimmage a great deal just because I believe you have to play. and it's the best conditioning tool. It's the best thing to get them ready for game action. And I hadn't always been that way, but the last couple of years, I've really changed our practice mode, and we got a scrimmage at least, maybe a day before the game. It's not as long, but we are going to incorporate scrimmaging into our practices most of the time.
Well, you went into my next group of questions talking about individual workouts, and I was going to ask you, how important are they to you? With the 4-man workouts, I should say. I know you say you should incorporate it in practice, but in the preseason, how much do you think those players develop in those 4-man workouts if you do them that way, or in the preseason to do the skill development?
Well, the whole thing is players want to have confidence, right?
Right.
Well, the only way you get confidence, if you got an exam coming up tomorrow, the only way that you're going to be confident on that is that you take time and you study and practice. So I believe that skill development and those individual workouts are crucial to developing confidence. Now, it is also a great opportunity for coaches to become confident in your work ethic as a player. If I come to the office and there's always the same guy in the gym with a coach working out, then I'm like, hey, I see you, man. I see you. And then you develop confidence that you can go to that young man when you need a better performance from him. You know that he's put in the work, and it builds trust both ways. Something that we incorporated in our program is we require guys to make a certain amount of shots during the week. Now, the key word is make a certain amount of shots, not shoot. I don't care how many shots you shoot. We're talking about makes per week. And then if you follow me on social media, you may see a picture with a guy that is holding a championship belt. Well, that championship belt is usually the shooting champion for the week. And we created that competition, and that has helped us just to create that culture that you were talking about earlier, and to emphasize that you have to get in the gym. Now, if you don't shoot the minimum amount of shots, it may be you got to make 1,500 shots in a week outside of practice. Okay, if you don't make your 1,500, you're going to run 5 miles. So either you're going to shoot or you're going to be in tremendous shape. And you say, well, coach, how do you know that they're making them? Well, this device right here has changed the game. And if you have a shooting machine that keeps track of the makes, we make them make a video. They have to date the video. They have to show the total number of makes on the gun, and then they have to send it to my assistant coach. And we've had guys that have tried to lie, and you could tell when the video's made, and if they don't date it, it don't count. And that way it holds them accountable for being in the gym. So individual workouts, man, and extra shooting is a major part of our program, and we hold our guys accountable for it.
With that, going into my next question, what are the 2 most important characteristics about you as a coach that if I ask 10 coaches, 8 of them are going to say at least one of those 2 things, so that will be the common theme of Coach Garvin is A and Coach Garvin is B. What are your 2 most important characteristics you feel you have?
Well, I would like to, that's a hard question for me to answer. I'd much rather you ask coaches that I coach against or that I coach with. At the end of the day, man, I want to be a developer of young men. I just want to develop young men.
Right.
That's why I got into coaching. A coach changed my life, and I just want to impact young men. Winning games, yes, that's important. That's my job, is to try to win as many basketball games as we possibly can. But I want to change lives, man, and I want to influence young people and get them to excel at a higher level in all aspects of their life. basketball is the tool that brought them to me and why we're together. But I want them to leave our program and be able to put food on the table and keep the lights on and raise their families and, just be better young men. And the game has allowed me to do that. And I would hope that that's what people would say. Hey, he developed young men. He cared about his community. He coached them hard, but he was fair. And if I could draw it up myself, that's what I'd like for it to be said. But that's something that someone else would have to answer. And that's a tough question, though, Jay.
About 3, maybe 4 more questions. That's about it, and then I'll let you go, Coach. As some kids may be watching this, talk about the importance of social media when you're recruiting and the recruiting of a parent and how important that is.
It's major, man. The first thing I do when we get wind of a prospect is I search his social media. That's one of the first things I do. Because it kind of shows you his responsibilities, his responsibility. Like, does he feel like this world revolves around him? Is he a selfie guy? Is he cursing on social media? What type of images is he putting out there? I want to know. I got to know about that, man, because you can bring a student athlete to your campus, man, and he can cost you your job just based off, how he carries himself and what he does in his private life. I put quotations around private life, but nobody has a private life no more. And you're kidding yourself if you think you do. I remind my guys all the time, if I go out here and get a DUI, that's going to cost them too, So we're all interconnected. So the social media aspect, man, if there's a young student athlete that watches this, please pay attention to what you're putting on social media. It can make or break your scholarship opportunities, not just with me, but it can influence your job, prospectus. It can influence a lot. And if you don't believe me, you could Google it and look it up yourself, that it's coming in the future that when you apply for a job, people are going to do a background check on your social media. And it's already happening. I mean, you get so many athletes that they had a tweet in 2015 that said this, and then they end up losing a job, or they lose an opportunity, or they said a racial slur on social media and they get fired. So it's going to be a part of your profile moving forward. So why not use it for the good and put more positive out there and build your brand on social media instead of thinking that you're entertaining people all the time?
Oftentimes it's said, that is very good. I've also said that to some of the kids that I've mentored and coached in the past. And the one in particular, I'm not going to call his name, but I've been on him real hard to make sure that his social media page is up to par, because it's one of the things that they go look at now. Right. And parents are being recruited too. And I think some parents forget that too.
Oh yeah. Now that was the second part of your question about the parents. Parents, it has gotten to the college level as well. Parents have to be careful, man, because nobody wants to deal with anyone that is obnoxious. It's great to love your son or your daughter and to think that they're really, really talented. It's another thing to think that all of them are LeBron James or Cheryl Swoops. Okay. That's not everybody's plight. Sometimes it's outstanding that your son or daughter got a scholarship. Let's just get through the door. All right. And then I tell my guys that once they get here, what you did in high school don't matter anymore. It's what you do right now. What you did in the past got you this opportunity, but now what gets you to the floor is what you do here. And, and parents, I tell them, if you got a question about playing time, come to practice. Come to practice. At the end of the day, man, I'm just trying to feed my family. The crux of the matter is I'm trying to feed my family. I'm giving your son a free education for the most part. If you can help me feed my family, you're going to play. I don't play, now I do tell them, Jay, and I advise all coaches to stop with this lie. We all play favorites. You play favorites, I play favorites. The CEO at Microsoft, he plays favorites. It's the people that produce become our favorites. If you don't produce, you're not going to be a favorite, okay? On the job, people get promoted because they produce. Same thing in athletics. If you produce, you get promoted. You become a favorite. You become a team captain. You become a starter. You become a guy that can play 30, 40 minutes a game if you're in great shape and you produce. But if you don't produce, you're not going to play. And that's just something, coaches always say, I don't play favorites. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We all have favorites, okay? And the favorites are producers, and that is something that I established in the recruiting process. And the first meeting I have with their families, I say, look, I do play favorites. I want you to know that. And I want to tell you who my favorites are, producers. So if you can produce, you'll be one of my favorites. If you can't produce, you will feel like you're not favored at all, but you're still here. So I advise you to just keep working, because if I keep you around, that means that you have the possibility of becoming a favorite. So
that is so true, because when people ask me that question, even in interviews, I don't discuss playing time. I tell the parent to come sit in practice, sit where your kid can't see you, and then you can see what I see every day to why your child is not playing.
Right.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Well, Jay, if they sit long enough, it don't matter if he can see you or not. It's going to reveal itself.
Right.
And that parent ain't going to come 4 or 5 days in a row. No. Now, what ends up happening in my situation, see, we might practice at 5:30 in the morning, so they ain't coming at all. So, and that usually kills that whole conversation. And, also too, I've had to learn over the years that you're not going to win everybody over, man. You're not going to do it. It's just not possible. I tell my guys that I can't adjust to 15 guys in the room. Why don't y'all try adjusting to me? And therefore, it'll be much smoother. But if you're asking me to adjust to you, and then I got to adjust to him, and then I got to adjust to him, and I can't yell at him, but I got to go hug him. I got to send him a text. I got to put my arm around him. Okay, I can yell at him. Okay, I no curse words. If I curse at him, he's going to shut down. Okay, if I don't curse at him, he won't play hard. You see how crazy that is? So I tell them, why don't y'all adjust to me? And I'm going to try to be consistent. So just adjust to me, and we'll make it to where we're trying to go faster than me trying to adjust to 15 different guys.
That's very good. Yeah, I mean, that makes much sense, because if we are trying to adjust to everybody, it becomes a problem, because then we look like we're going crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been crazy before, because I've actually tried to adjust. I've tried, man. Coaching, I told you, we teach, and then you got to be a psychologist.
Right. Oftentimes it's said that teams take on the identity or the personality of the head coach of a South Carolina State team. If they've never seen you play, if they come in and just evaluate a game or even a practice, what would you say the identity of your team is?
I think they're going to say that we play hard. We don't give up, man. We don't give up. We keep fighting every day, no matter who it is. we don't believe in limitations, and I believe our team, we represent that. I think our guys are more than conquerors. Um, well, we compete every day, and we try to make everything a competition in our program. Again, if you didn't win the championship, everybody wishes they had won at least one more game. But I think our young men compete, and that we're gentlemen. We're a clean cut basketball team where we're graduating student athletes. We care about our community. And I believe that's the identity of our program right now. And I don't have a problem with that. We're champions in life. Again, my guys are graduating, they're moving on. Some of them have professional careers in basketball, and some of them have professional careers in the workplace. And that's what we've been after during my tenure here at South Carolina State.
Great. Final question, Coach. What is your advice? I know you touched on it a little bit earlier in the conversation. What is some of your, and you can retouch that same statement, what is some of your advice to younger coaches just trying to get in the business no matter what level it is? What is your advice?
Man, to work your tail off, man. Be willing to do what others won't. Know your craft. During this time, during this quarantine, one of the great benefits on the coaching realm is, man, there's so many free professional development opportunities that you can hear from coaches all around the country, all levels. I mean, look, I'm on with you right now. I mean, it's opportunities, man, out there to get better. Study the game of basketball and don't expect no one to give you anything. Earn everything that you want. And when I say be willing to do what others won't, I'm not talking about anything illegal. My first high school job, man, I didn't get paid. I volunteered and I was there every day like I was paid. My first college job on the college level, I was a part-time head coach at a community college. Okay, we had to practice at 5:00 in the morning. I went to work from 11 to 7, and then I came back to campus after 7:00. And I did that for little of nothing compared to what people are making in this game. Don't expect to get rich coaching basketball. Don't expect, let me say that again. Don't get into this game for money, okay? Don't get into this coaching game for money, because you will be very disappointed in the amount of money that some coaches make early in their careers. And very few get to the six-figure incomes. Comparing is the enemy of happiness, man. And you have to do this for the right reasons, man. You got to do this because you love the game of basketball and that you want to develop young people. If you're in it for money, you're going to burn out quick. Get into this for the right reasons. For guys wanting to get on the collegiate level, you have to network. It's not who you know, it's who knows you, okay? And you have to get in and you got to keep in contact with people and you have to develop relationships, and they got to know you before the position even opens. You got to have some type of credibility and relationship before the job even posts, man. You want to be on somebody's mind before they even have an opportunity for you. These introductions that happen when jobs open up, it's too late at that point. And my last point that I would make to coaches is, if you want to coach, start coaching. If you want to coach, start coaching, man. Don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity. Go down to the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club or Parks and Recreation and start coaching, and start coaching. They're looking for coaches all the time. And you would be surprised the amount of coaches that started their coaching career on a volunteer basis. Don't think you're going to jump into this and you're just going to become rich just like that. I worked on the college level. I think I was telling one of my assistants the other day that I worked 13 or 14 years before I made over $50,000 a year.
Wow.
13 or 14 years in this game, man, before I made over 50K. And yeah, I could have chose to go into some other job field, but it wasn't my passion. You know, I like to be able to dress up on game days and wear a sweatsuit or a polo shirt the rest of the week. You know, yeah. They give you sneakers, they give you sweatsuits, man. I got a closet full of sweatsuits. I got so many travel bags. If you want to borrow a travel bag, I can give you one.
Hey, well, I was just about to say, you can send me a couple sweatsuits and a travel bag. I'll tell you. Matter of fact, I'll text you my address.
But
Dion Bethay said hello, and he wanted me to say, you know, he thanks you for recruiting his players, and he was just wanting to talk about why it was important that you recruited some of his players.
Hey, cause you're really good, Dion. You're really good at what you do, and you keep a stable of thoroughbreds over there at Gray, and they are really fortunate to have you, and you're one of the best coaches. And I'm not even going to put in South Carolina, man. I think he's one of the bright stars in this coaching game, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on the college level, if that's what he wants to do at his choosing. I would tell all coaches, man, that are aspiring to jump levels, don't mess with happy, man. If you're happy at doing what you love, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And if it is greener, it takes a whole lot more watering, okay? So don't be so quick to jump on the first train smoking, you know, stay, don't mess with happy, all right? Don't mess with happy, but Dion, again, has been a friend for years. I think I've coached maybe about 6 of his guys. We just signed another one, you know, so if it wasn't for Dion Bethay, I might not be on this interview with you. So that's my man, 50 grand. A lot of people think we got something going, man, but it's just mutual respect and admiration for how we do things and how we take care of young people.
I just got off the phone with him earlier. He was actually walking, but yeah, that's my guy too. He's known me actually since I've been a little kid, and he was coaching me at Clemson individual day camps that kids go to in high school.
Yeah, he's been in the game a long time, man. The first guy that I coached from Dion was a kid by the name of Marquise Duval. Coached him at Charleston Southern and recruited him out of Spring Valley, but he played for the Ravens. Right. And that was my first interaction with Dion. That's been almost 15 years ago, I think. You know, 15, 16 years ago, man. So he's been someone that's been a constant in my coaching career.
Coach, I really appreciate it. I'm going to pull us off live here in a second. Guys, please share this video. Coach Garvin has dropped some great gems today, that things that you would want to hear if you're just now tuning in, or if you tune back in and you missed some of it. Go back and rewatch it. It'll be on my Facebook page. It should be on his. I tagged a few other people. It'll also be on my YouTube channel, Full Court Press with Coach Jay. Like he talked about, I am hosting a full free virtual clinic via Zoom next Thursday. The post has been up. You can find the information on my page. If you want to join into that, please inbox me or send me a message and or write on the post, and I'll get you to that information. Thank you for tuning in. Coach, I'm going to take us off.
All right.